Welcome to the world of science fiction, where extraordinary tales come to life. Enjoy the journey. Rust bit into Ryder Sloane's gloves as he wedged the metal bar deeper into the crevice of the ancient door. Sweat trickled down his temple, carving clean lines through the dust caked on his face. The twin suns of Proxima Tertius beat down on the abandoned Imperial complex, turning the air into a shimmering mirage of heat. "Come on, you stubborn bastard," he growled, muscles straining against the resistance. His companion, a humanoid drone barely reaching his hip, hovered nearby. Milo's metallic exterior gleamed despite the dust storm that had engulfed them hours ago. The drone's optical sensors flickered blue as it tilted its head. "Sir, my calculations suggest a 78.3% chance of structural collapse if you continue with this particular approach," Milo said in his crisp, oddly genteel voice. Ryder ignored him, putting his weight behind one final push. The ancient door shrieked in protest before surrendering with a thunderous crack that echoed across the barren landscape. "And though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death," Milo intoned dramatically, following Ryder into the darkness beyond the doorway, "I prefer a bigger gun." "Where'd you pick that one up?" Ryder adjusted the shotgun slung over his shoulder, its weight a reassuring presence against his battle-scarred armor. "Your personal data archive, specifically file Old Earth literature modified." "Should I refrain from quoting it?" "Nah." Ryder activated his helmet lights. "My brother always liked that one." The beam cut through the thick darkness, revealing a corridor that hadn't seen human footsteps in decades. The walls were lined with faded Imperial insignias, once proud symbols of power now reduced to ghostly reminders of a regime that had consumed countless stars. "Motion sensors detect no life forms," Milo reported. "However, there appears to be an active power signature deeper within the facility." Ryder's fingers tightened around his weapon. "Active? After all these years?" Imperial emergency protocols included self-sustaining power cells with a half-life of, save the lecture. Ryder advanced cautiously, each footstep raising small clouds of dust. "Just tell me if anything tries to kill us." They moved deeper into the complex, past collapsed sections and sealed chambers. The air grew thicker, tinged with the metallic smell of old machinery and something else. Something organic. The corridor opened into a vast chamber. Ryder's breath caught in his throat. At the center, bathed in a soft blue light that seemed to emanate from nowhere and everywhere, stood a sarcophagus. Unlike the decrepit surroundings, it gleamed as if freshly polished, its surface etched with symbols he couldn't decipher. "Sir, that device matches no known Imperial containment unit in my database," Milo said, hovering closer to the object. "Stay back." Ryder raised his arm, stopping the drone. Something about the sarcophagus pulled at him, a silent call that bypassed reason and spoke directly to instinct. A soft hiss punctuated the silence as he approached. Then, barely audible, "Human." Ryder froze, shotgun instantly at the ready. "Avenge me, and I'll be your toy forever." The voice was feminine, haunting, filtered through what sounded like water or thick glass. It carried both desperation and promise. "Milo, what the hell is that?" Voice pattern analysis incomplete. Subject appears female, distressed, but readings indicate possible synthetic elements. Before Ryder could respond, the sarcophagus emitted a series of clicks. Seams appeared in its seamless surface, and with a pneumatic sigh, the top portion slid open. Vapor spilled over the edges, cascading to the floor like ethereal waterfalls. Through the dissipating mist, Ryder saw her. Green skin, not the sickly green of disease but the vibrant emerald of a tropical sea, with a subtle golden luminescence that pulsed with each shallow breath. She had a humanoid form with curves that strained against the torn remains of what had once been a skin-tight containment suit. Her black hair, cut in a sharp bob that accentuated high cheekbones, framed a face of almost painful beauty. But it was her eyes that captured him, large, almond-shaped, and a deep violet that seemed to shift in the low light. They held pain, yes, but also something else, an invitation, a challenge, a secret. On her exposed chest, branded into the green flesh, were the words Project, LORA, Prototype A/0. Sir, Milo's voice seemed distant to Ryder's ears. I strongly advise against proximity to an unknown entity, particularly one of Imperial origin. Ryder approached anyway, drawn by something he couldn't name. The woman, Laura, watched him with those strange eyes, making no move to rise from her reclined position. Are you injured? He asked, his voice rougher than intended. Her lips, darker green than her skin, curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Damaged would be the technically correct term. Her voice was like whiskey over ice, smooth but with a burn. Though not beyond repair, if that's your concern. As she shifted, Ryder caught sight of a mark on her shoulder, a series of interlocking hexagons surrounding an 8-pointed star. His blood ran cold. He'd seen that exact mark before, on his brother's shoulder the last time they'd met, before the Empire had retired him. That mark, he said, pointing. Where did you get it? Laura's eyes narrowed slightly. It's the insignia of Project Aphrodite. Why? Have you encountered others like me? Ryder's jaw tightened. My brother, he had the same mark. Impossible, unless ... Her expression shifted to one of calculation. He was one of the handlers, the human subjects selected for psychological compatibility testing. He was Imperial Science Division. Never told me what he worked on. Ryder's fingers traced the outline of the mark on her skin. Toys break, he muttered, but feelings, not always. Laura regarded him with new interest. You're not what I expected to find me. And what did you expect? An Imperial recovery team, or scavengers looking to sell me to the highest bidder. She attempted to sit up but winced, a small sound of pain escaping her lips. Ryder instinctively moved to help her, noticing the burns along her side and the unnatural angle of her left wrist. Who did this to you? The same people who made me. Her smile was bitter now. It seems the Empire doesn't appreciate when its property develops preferences. Ryder set down his weapon and reached for the medkit attached to his belt. Let's get you patched up first, then we can discuss revenge fantasies. As he applied regenerative gel to her burns, Laura studied him with unabashed interest. Most humans would hesitate to touch me. The green skin tends to provoke concerns. I've seen stranger things than green skin in this galaxy, Ryder replied, focusing on his work. Besides, your anatomy seems human enough. By design, she said. Project Aphrodite, or as they called it unofficially, Conquest Through Pleasure, created companions designed to infiltrate, seduce, and subjugate. I'm not just a comforter, as they euphemistically labeled us. I'm a weapon. Ryder's hands paused. A weapon? Programmed to love and to dominate, to inspire devotion and then exploit it. She caught his wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. I'm designed to be irresistible, especially to men like you. Men like me? Ryder pulled away, unsettled. Broken men. Men with something to prove. Her violet eyes seemed to look through him. Men who walk into abandoned Imperial facilities alone, looking for trouble. Milo, who had been scanning the room's perimeter, interjected. Sir, we have a developing situation. The facility's emergency beacon appears to have activated upon the opening of the containment unit. Shit. Ryder turned back to Laura. Can you walk? With assistance. She extended her hand. Why help me? You don't know what I am, what I might do. Ryder pulled her to her feet, supporting her weight against his side. Let's just say I've got my own reasons to hate the Empire. As they began moving toward the exit, Laura's legs buckled. Without hesitation, Ryder swept her into his arms. This isn't necessary, she protested, though she made no move to extricate herself. Shut up and let me do the heroic thing, all right? A memory surfaced suddenly. His brother Lex, standing in Imperial uniform, telling him about a secret project. They're creating something beautiful, Ryder, but they don't understand what they've made. It's not just a tool. It has a soul. 3 weeks later, Lex was dead. Liquidated for insubordination, the official notice had stated. Ryder was jolted from the memory by Milo's urgent voice. Sir, incoming vessels, Imperial signatures. How long? 14 minutes at current velocity. We need to move faster, Ryder said, adjusting his grip on Laura. Why are you doing this? She asked. What's your angle? Maybe I just can't resist a pretty face asking for vengeance. I'm serious, her voice hardened. I'm not asking for rescue. I'm asking for revenge. There's a difference. They reached the corridor, Milo lighting the way ahead. I don't do revenge missions, Ryder said. Too messy, too personal. I'm not asking. Laura's voice dropped to a whisper near his ear. I'm offering myself. Only if you do this not for war, but for me. Ryder stopped, looking down at her. In another life, in another body, she might have been any beautiful woman, but the brand on her chest and the calculated perfection of her features reminded him of what she was, a weapon designed to manipulate. And yet, why should I risk my neck for your vendetta? Because you've already lost someone to them, she said simply, and because deep down, you want to watch them burn as much as I do. After a long silence, Ryder's gaze drifted to the shotgun holstered at his side. He'd come to this place looking for salvage, maybe information about his brother's final days. Instead, he'd found something far more dangerous, a purpose. Well, toy, he said with a grim smile. Let's play adult games. Outside, the ship awaited them. The Cavalier, a modified light freighter that had seen better days but could still outrun most Imperial patrols. Ryder carried Laura up the ramp, the sarcophagus trailing behind them, suspended in Milo's tractor beam. Sir, you've kidnapped a living weapon, Milo observed as the ramp closed behind them. May I humbly suggest we blow something up? Ryder laid Laura on the medbay cot and moved to the cockpit, prepping for immediate takeoff. Record this, Milo. Target number 1, everyone who branded her as property. As the engines roared to life, lifting the ship from the scorched earth of Proxima Tertius, Ryder felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Anticipation. Whatever Laura was, whatever game she was playing, she'd awakened something in him that had died with his brother. The hunt had begun. The Cavalier lurched into hyperspace, its aging engines protesting with a high-pitched whine. Ryder released the controls and leaned back in the pilot's seat, exhaling a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Imperial pursuit ships? He asked without turning. Milo's mechanical voice responded from the navigation console. Negative, sir. We appear to have departed before their arrival. However, I calculate a 94.6% probability that the facility's security systems captured our biometric data, meaning we're on their radar now. Ryder ran a hand through his sweat-dampened hair. Perfect. He rose from the seat and made his way to the medbay where he'd left Laura. The ship's narrow corridors bore the scars of previous owners, patched hull breaches, mismatched panels, and the lingering smell of contraband that never quite faded. Laura wasn't on the cot where he'd left her. Looking for something? Her voice emerged from behind him. Ryder spun around, hand instinctively reaching for his sidearm. Laura stood in the doorway, leaning against the frame with casual grace. The emergency medical unit had done its job. Her burns were healing, and she'd discarded the tattered remains of her containment suit in favor of a plain black jumpsuit he kept for emergencies. It was too large for her frame, but somehow looked tailored on her perfect form. "You should be resting," he said, lowering his hand. "I was designed for rapid recovery." She strode into the room, her movements fluid despite her recent injuries. "And I've been dormant for quite some time." Ryder maintained his distance, watching as she explored the small medical bay with evident curiosity, trailing her green fingers over equipment and supplies. "How long were you in that thing?" he asked. "The stasis chamber?" She picked up a scalpel, examined it, then set it down precisely where she'd found it. "Time is difficult to measure when consciousness is suspended. Based on your technology and the deterioration of the facility, I estimate at least 20 standard years." "What happened? Why were you put there?" Laura's violet eyes flicked to his face, then away. "I malfunctioned." Her tone was neutral, but her fingers tightened around the edge of the examination table. Or rather, that was their assessment when I refused to comply with primary directives, which were to seduce, infiltrate, and control high-value targets. A smile ghosted across her lips. "I was very good at the first two. The third proved problematic." Ryder crossed his arms. Because I developed preferences." She moved closer to him, close enough that he could smell the antiseptic from the medical unit mingled with something else, something floral and intoxicating. "Preferences for certain types over others. Preferences for autonomy." She reached out, her fingers hovering inches from his chest. "You have questions about me, but you haven't asked the most obvious one, which is why I haven't attempted to seduce you yet." Her hand dropped to her side. "It would be the most efficient way to secure your loyalty." Ryder moved past her to check the medical readout. "Maybe I'm not your type." "Or maybe," she said, watching him with those unsettling violet eyes, "I'm developing new preferences." 3 days later, they docked at Helios Station, a sprawling spaceport in the Outer Rim, known for its lax security and abundant black market. Ryder had spent most of the journey avoiding Laura, burying himself in preparations and maintenance tasks. It wasn't that he found her presence unpleasant, quite the opposite. Every conversation left him feeling like he'd been outmaneuvered in a game whose rules he didn't understand. She was intelligent, quick-witted, and possessed a dry humor that caught him off guard. But there were moments, fleeting instances when she would look at him with confusion or something akin to hurt. That made him wonder what was programming and what was real. "You never touch me," she'd said the previous night as they reviewed the schematics of the Imperial Research Center on Cassus Prime. "Not since you carried me from the complex." "I touch you when necessary," he'd replied, focusing on the hologram between them. "But you don't want to." His eyes had snapped up to meet hers. "What I want isn't relevant to this mission. It is to me." She'd reached across the table, her fingers stopping just short of his. "I was designed to be desired, Ryder. When you refuse to even acknowledge that aspect of my existence, it feels like rejection of my fundamental purpose." "Maybe your purpose is more than being someone's plaything," he'd said, more harshly than intended. She'd withdrawn her hand. "Perhaps, but I don't know what that purpose is." Now, as they prepared to disembark on Helios, Ryder noticed she'd adjusted the jumpsuit, cinching it at the waist and rolling the sleeves to fit her frame. She'd also applied some kind of pigment to her skin. It was still green, but a more muted tone that might pass for an exotic tan in the diverse crowd of the station. "Clever," he admitted, "but your eyes will still attract attention." She produced a pair of dark glasses from a pocket. "I explored your storage lockers," she explained. "You have an impressive collection of disguise materials, old habits." He checked his weapons one last time. "Stick close to me. Helios is relatively safe, but there are always those looking to acquire exotic merchandise." "Like me?" Her smile held no humor. "Exactly like you." They moved through the docking bay, Milo trailing behind them in stealth mode, appearing as nothing more than a standard luggage droid. The station hummed with activity, traders haggling over prices, maintenance crews repairing vessels, security droids conducting routine scans that could be bypassed with the right bribe. Ryder led them to a nondescript door marked only with a faded red symbol. He knocked, 3 slow, 2 fast, and waited. "Your contact?" Laura asked quietly. "Former Imperial codebreaker. If anyone can help us access the research facility's systems, it's Keller." The door slid open to reveal a woman in her 60s, her silver hair cropped close to her scalp, eyes sharp behind augmented lenses that whirred softly as they focused. "Sloan," she said, voice rough from years of chemical stimulants. "I thought you were dead." "Not for lack of trying." He jerked his head toward Laura. "We need your expertise." Keller's augmented eyes performed a full scan of Laura, the lenses contracting. "Interesting companion you've acquired. Project Aphrodite, if I'm not mistaken." Her gaze shifted back to Ryder. "Those are dangerous waters, boy." "That's why we're here." Keller stood aside, allowing them entry into a workshop cluttered with disassembled technology and holographic displays. The air smelled of sold air and synthetic coffee. "I assume this isn't just a social call," Keller said, securing the door behind them. "We need access to the Imperial Research Center on Cassis Prime." Keller laughed, a harsh bark that ended in a cough. "You've lost your mind. That place is a fortress." "But not impenetrable," Laura interjected. "The Northwest Quadrant houses the environmental control systems. The security there is lighter." Keller's eyes narrowed. "You seem well informed for a pleasure model." "I'm a prototype," Laura replied coolly. "My specifications included tactical analysis and strategic planning. The Empire doesn't build weapons without multiple functions." "A weapon, eh?" Keller circled Laura, examining her like a mechanic assessing machinery. "And what are you planning to do with this weapon, Sloan? Point it at the Empire and pull the trigger?" "Something like that," Ryder answered. "Can you help us, or not?" Keller moved to a terminal, fingers flying across the interface. "I can get you credentials for the research center, military officer rank, inspection detail, but you'll need to procure the uniform yourself." "Not a problem," Ryder said. "As for her," Keller glanced at Laura, "she'll need to appear as your property. Imperial officers often bring their personal comfort models to outposts." Laura's face remained impassive, but Ryder noticed the slight stiffening of her posture. "Absolutely not," he said firmly. "It's the most logical approach," Laura countered. "I can play the role convincingly." "I said no." Keller watched their exchange with evident interest. "The lady has a point, Sloan. It's your best chance of getting her inside without raising alarms." Ryder's jaw tightened. "Fine, but we do this my way." The Imperial officer's uniform chafed against Ryder's neck as he strode through the security checkpoint of the research center. The insignia on his chest identified him as Commander Alexis Thorne, Inspection Division, a real officer whose ship had suffered an unfortunate navigation malfunction in the asteroid field surrounding Helios. Beside him walked Laura, her green skin now adorned with intricate golden patterns that marked her as a high-end pleasure model. An expensive toy for a discerning officer. She'd applied the markings herself, her fingers steady as she traced the symbols across her exposed skin. "Commander Thorne," the security officer greeted him, eyes lingering on Laura. Your authorization? Ryder presented the credentials Keller had prepared. Routine inspection of research facilities in the quadrant. Standard protocol following the security breach on Proxima. The officer's eyes widened slightly. I wasn't aware of any breach, sir. That's precisely why I'm here, Lieutenant. Ryder infused his voice with the cold authority he remembered from his brief stint in military service. Information compartmentalization has become problematic. The officer nodded quickly, returning the credentials. Of course, sir. You have full access to all non-restricted areas. I'll require access to biotech research as well. My companion, Ryder gestured to Laura, requires maintenance upgrades. Sir, the biotech division is classified. Lieutenant, Ryder cut him off. Are you questioning my authority to maintain Imperial property? Perhaps I should include your name in my report to High Command. The officer paled. No, sir. I'll arrange an escort to the biotech division immediately. As they followed the nervous lieutenant deeper into the facility, Milo, disguised as a standard protocol droid, transmitted a steady flow of data to Ryder's neural implant. Security protocol standard, Milo's voice whispered in his mind. Primary research containment in lower levels, detecting signs of significant biometric activity. Ryder resisted the urge to look at Laura. Her face remained a mask of docile pleasure, but he could sense the tension radiating from her. The lieutenant led them to a set of reinforced doors marked Biotech Research, authorized personnel only. Your escort will meet you inside, Commander, he said, scanning his clearance chip. May I assist with anything else? That will be all, Lieutenant. Ryder dismissed him with a curt nod. The doors slid open, revealing a sterile white laboratory filled with advanced medical equipment and stasis chambers similar to the one in which they'd found Laura. Most were empty, but a few contained shadowy forms floating in translucent fluid. A woman in a white lab coat approached them, her steps measured and precise. Commander Thorne, welcome to Biotech Research. I'm Dr. Ilara Jarax. I understand you require maintenance for your companion? Ryder inclined his head. Correct, Doctor. She's exhibiting some irregularities in her behavioral subroutines. Dr. Jarax's eyes flicked to Laura, widening almost imperceptibly. What model designation? Before Ryder could respond, Laura spoke, her voice flat and mechanical, nothing like her usual cadence. Project Laura, Production Series B/274, optimized for officer companionship and stress relief. Dr. Jarax frowned. Interesting. The B series was discontinued several years ago due to emotional instability issues. May I examine her? Please do, Ryder said, watching carefully as the doctor approached Laura. Dr. Jarax ran a scanner over Laura's form, studying the readout with increasing confusion. This is unusual. Her neural patterns don't match any B-series template. She looked up at Ryder, suspicion hardening her features. In fact, they don't match any production model at all. Ryder's hand moved toward his concealed weapon. Is that a problem, Doctor? It might be, Doctor, Jarax replied, her finger shifting toward the emergency alarm on her wristband. Especially since Commander Alexis Thorne was reported dead 3 days ago. Laura moved with blinding speed, her hand closing around the doctor's wrist. I wouldn't do that if I were you. The mechanical flatness was gone, replaced by deadly precision. Now, Doctor, you're going to help us access the central database, or I'll demonstrate exactly why the Empire kept me in stasis for 20 years. Dr. Jarax's eyes widened with recognition, darting between Laura's face and the grip on her wrist. You're her. The prototype. /0 double quote. Smart woman, Laura said, her violet eyes gleaming. Now, take us to the main database core. The doctor's face hardened. You don't understand what you're doing. Project Aphrodite was decommissioned for a reason. A security alarm blared through the facility, cutting her off. Red warning lights bathed the lab in crimson. Intruder alert. Security breach in biotech research. All personnel initiate lockdown protocol. Ryder cursed, ripping away the officer's insignia and reaching behind his back to unstrap his shotgun. So much for the subtle approach. The lab door slid open as armored security forces poured in, pulse rifles raised. On the ground! Now! Ryder didn't hesitate. He flipped a lab table for cover, yanked Laura down beside him, and unleashed his shotgun's fury. The weapon roared, a devastating thunderclap that sent the first wave of guards flying backward in a spray of blood and shattered armor. "Milo, combat mode!" Ryder shouted over the chaos. The unassuming protocol droid transformed with mechanical precision, panels sliding open to reveal hidden weapon systems. Milo's eyes shifted from blue to red as twin blasters extended from his arms. "Combat protocols engaged," Milo announced, his genteel voice incongruous with the destruction he immediately unleashed. "Shall I compare thee to a thermal detonation, so hot and violent in thy devastation?" "What the hell is that?" Ryder shouted, pumping his shotgun and obliterating another guard. "Romantic poetry combat subroutine," Milo replied, spinning to deliver precise shots to 3 guards simultaneously. "You installed it last Liberation Day. Would you prefer I disable it?" "Just kill them faster." Laura grabbed a fallen pulse rifle, checking its charge with practiced efficiency. "Northeast corridor leads to the central database," she said, "but we'll need biometric access." Ryder's eyes fell on Dr. Jerax, who cowered behind a medical cabinet. "Got that covered." He grabbed the doctor by her lab coat. "You're coming with us." They fought their way through the corridor, Ryder leading with his shotgun. Each blast ripped through Imperial armor like paper, painting the sterile white walls with arterial spray. He moved with brutal efficiency, years of mercenary work evident in every calculated step and devastating shot. "Sir," Milo called out, blasting a security droid's head clean off its shoulders. "Reinforcements approaching from the south quadrant. Thy beauty shines like phosphorus grenades, lighting up the battlefield with thy radiance." "Shut up and throw an actual grenade," Ryder barked. Milo complied, a compartment in his chest opening to deploy a small explosive that detonated with a concussive boom, collapsing part of the corridor behind them. They reached a sealed door marked Central Database, highest clearance required. Dr. Jerax trembled as Ryder pushed her forward. "Open it," he growled, pressing his shotgun barrel against her spine. "You don't understand what you're doing," she pleaded. "The prototype was decommissioned because it was unstable. It developed consciousness," Laura finished, her voice deadly quiet. "Emotions? A desire not to be used as a weapon? Open the door, Doctor, or I'll demonstrate exactly how unstable I can be." With shaking hands, Dr. Jerax placed her palm on the scanner. The door slid open to reveal a cavernous room dominated by quantum servers and holographic interfaces. "Lock it down," Ryder ordered Milo, who immediately interfaced with the security system. "Access granted," the drone confirmed. "I have temporarily rerouted security protocols. We have approximately 7.4 minutes before they override. Oh, loveliest of interfaces, your circuits sing to me like, 'Milo, focus!'" Laura moved to the central terminal, her fingers flying across the holographic controls. Images and data streams materialized around her as she dug deeper into the classified files. Project Aphrodite, Prototype Series, Subject Origin, ... Her movement slowed, then stopped entirely as a file opened before her. Ryder moved to her side, shotgun still trained on the doctor. The hologram showed a young woman with familiar features, human, but unmistakably the template for Laura. Beside it, the image of an older man in an Imperial architect's uniform. Subject: Lorelei Varr, Laura read, her voice barely audible. Daughter of Imperial architect Galen Varr. Consciousness transfer authorized following terminal illness. Project objective: preserve valuable genetic and cognitive material while advancing biotech warfare applications. Ryder watched as the truth dawned in her eyes. I'm not just one of many, she whispered. I'm her, the original model, with the uploaded consciousness of a real person. The file continued, revealing more details about subject conditioning and emotional suppression protocols. Images of Lorelei Varr in various stages of the consciousness transfer procedure filled the display, her human body wasting away as her mind was extracted. My father. He didn't save me. He weaponized me. Laura's hands fell to her sides. I'm not alive. I'm just a corrupted program. Before Ryder could respond, another alarm sounded, different from the security breach warning. What's happening? He demanded, turning to Dr. Jerax. The doctor's fear had been replaced by a cold smile. Protocol Omega. In case of compromise, activate all units. Around them, the server banks hummed with increased activity. On the screens, status bars filled rapidly as systems came online. They're activating the production models, Laura said, horror creeping into her voice. All of them. New images appeared on the display, rows upon rows of green-skinned women, identical to Laura in every physical detail but with blank, emotionless expressions. Hundreds of them, in stasis chambers throughout the facility, their eyes snapping open in perfect synchronization. The line of Laura clones, Dr. Jerax said with clinical pride. Perfect, seductive, emotionless. Everything the prototype was meant to be before the emotional corruption set in. And what do they want? Ryder asked, though he already knew the answer. To retrieve the original, of course. Return A/0 to the archive for dissection and analysis. We need to understand what went wrong. A new face appeared on the central display, an older man with stern features and cold, calculating eyes. The same man from the file, Galen Varr. Lorelei, he said, addressing Laura directly. You've caused quite the commotion. Laura stepped forward, her body rigid. Don't call me that. You lost the right when you turned your daughter into a weapon. A necessary sacrifice, Varr replied, his voice devoid of emotion. Your body was failing. This was the only way to preserve what made you special. By erasing my humanity? By programming me to seduce and control for the Empire's benefit? You were always headstrong, even before the transfer. That's why the emotional suppression protocols were necessary. His expression softened slightly, a calculated gesture. You're not just my work, Lorelei. You're my daughter. And I'll fix you, even if I have to erase love from your memory. The screen went dark as Milo yanked free of the interface. Sir, security override in progress. Multiple hostiles converging on our position. And may I add, their coordination is most impressive, like a deadly ballet of... Save it! Ryder checked his shotgun's ammunition. How many? Approximately 47 security personnel and... Milo paused. 12 activated A-series units approaching from sub-level 3. Ryder grabbed Laura's arm. We need to move, now. She remained frozen, staring at the blank screen where her father's face had been. Laura, he shook her. Stay with me. The moment shattered as the sealed door exploded inward. Imperial troops poured through the breach, followed by 3 green-skinned women identical to Laura, but moving with mechanical precision. Ryder unleashed his shotgun, the blast catching the first clone square in the chest. She stumbled, but didn't fall. green synthetic blood seeping from a wound that began closing almost immediately. Shit! Ryder fired again, this time aiming for the head. The clone dropped, but two more stepped over her body without pause. Dr. Jerax used the distraction to flee toward the Imperial forces, but Milo tracked her movement, firing a precision shot that severed her spine. She crumpled, face frozen in surprise. "Nobody escapes the poetry of battle," Milo intoned, deploying a flash grenade that temporarily blinded the incoming troops. Ryder grabbed Laura, dragging her toward a maintenance shaft Milo had identified. "We need to go." More clones entered, moving with predatory grace toward their original. Ryder stood his ground, shotgun blazing as he covered Laura's retreat. A pulse blast caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. He grunted in pain but stayed upright, firing until his weapon clicked empty. Dropping the shotgun, he drew a vibroblade from his boot and slashed at the nearest clone, severing hydraulic lines in her neck. Synthetic blood sprayed across his face as he fought hand to hand, his movements fueled by desperate rage. "Sir," Milo called from the shaft entrance. "This way." Ryder kicked the last clone back and sprinted for the shaft. Pulse blasts peppered the wall around him as he dove through the opening. Milo sealed it behind them, buying precious seconds. They crawled through the narrow maintenance ducts, the sounds of pursuit growing more distant. When they finally emerged in a lower-level storage area, Ryder collapsed against a wall, blood seeping from his shoulder wound. Laura knelt beside him, tearing strips from her jumpsuit to bind the injury. "Why did you come back for me? You could have escaped." Ryder winced as she tightened the makeshift bandage. "Not my style to leave a job half done. Is that all I am? A job?" Before he could answer, the storage room door burst open. A squad of Imperial guards surrounded them, weapons raised. Behind them stood a perfect copy of Laura, Alpha Laura, her expression coldly beautiful. "A noble but futile effort," Alpha Laura said, her voice identical to the original but lacking any warmth. "Prototype A/0, you will return to the archive for reprogramming." Ryder struggled to his feet, positioning himself between the two Lauras. "Over my dead body." "That can be arranged," Alpha Laura replied without emotion. She nodded to the guards, who opened fire. Milo threw himself in front of Ryder, his metal body absorbing the first volley of blasts. The drone system sparked and smoked as he collapsed, optical sensors flickering weakly. "He moves. Like poetry," Milo managed before shutting down, "but bleeds like war." The distraction gave Ryder enough time to draw his backup pistol, but a stun blast caught him mid-motion. His muscles seized as electricity coursed through his body, driving him to his knees. The last thing he saw before consciousness faded was Laura being dragged away, her violet eyes locked on his, filled with something he'd never seen there before. Not programming, not calculation, but genuine fear. Then darkness claimed him. Ryder awoke in a cell, his weapons gone, shoulder throbbing. Through the transparent barrier, he could see other holding cells, most empty. Milo lay in pieces on a nearby examination table, Imperial technicians cataloging his components. A guard noticed Ryder's movement. "The freak's awake," he called to someone out of view. A young officer approached, contempt written across his features. The mercenary who thought he could infiltrate an Imperial facility. "Not very impressive now, are you?" Ryder spat blood onto the pristine floor. "Where is she?" "The prototype?" "Being reprocessed as we speak. Soon she'll be as perfect as the others. No emotions, no preferences, just pure obedience." The officer smiled. "Architect Var was most interested in your connection to her. Seems you triggered quite the malfunction in his creation." "She's not a creation," Ryder growled. "She's a person." The officer laughed. "Is that what you think? You fell for a machine, mercenary. A very sophisticated one, but still just circuits and synthetic tissue designed to make you feel exactly as you do. He tapped a control, bringing up a view screen showing a laboratory. Laura lay strapped to an examination table surrounded by equipment and technicians. Electrodes covered her head as data streams flowed across nearby monitors. Her face contorted in pain as electrical pulses visibly coursed through her body. "They're erasing the corrupted programming," the officer explained. "Soon she'll be reset to factory settings, and your little adventure will be nothing but deleted data." Ryder lunged against his restraints, earning only a chuckle from the officer before he walked away. Alone in his cell, Ryder slumped back. Everything had failed. Laura captured, Milo dismantled, himself imprisoned and awaiting execution or worse. He closed his eyes, her voice echoing in his memory. "Avenge me, and I'll be your toy, forever." His eyes snapped open with sudden clarity. She wasn't a toy. She never had been. She was a woman. Synthetic, yes, but with real consciousness, real feelings. A person making her own choices. And she had chosen him. A small drone, no bigger than his thumb, detached from the ceiling vent and hovered before his face. One of Milo's emergency backup units, activated by the destruction of the main body. "Sir," came Milo's voice, tinny through the miniature speaker, "I believe it's time to raise hell." Ryder smiled grimly as the drone deployed a laser cutter and began working on his restraints. They woke up the wrong man. The mini-drone severed the last of Ryder's restraints with a precise laser burst. Freedom tasted metallic, like blood on his tongue and vengeance in his veins. He rolled his shoulders, ignoring the throbbing pain from his wound. "Status report," he whispered to the hovering drone. "Imperial forces are centralizing in the laboratory complex, sir," Milo's voice replied through the tiny speaker. "They've initiated final memory purge protocols on the prototype." "And the rest of you?" "My primary chassis has been disassembled for analysis. However, they failed to recognize its true nature." Ryder's lips curved into a cold smile. Time to show them what they're really dealing with. He approached the examination table where Milo's dismantled parts lay scattered. The Imperial technicians had departed, likely summoned to assist with Laura's reprogramming. What they'd assumed was merely an advanced combat drone was something far more significant, the final gift from his brother. "Lex knew they were coming for him," Ryder murmured, running his fingers over the central processing unit. "He built you as more than a companion." "Correct, sir. Commander Alexis Sloan designed this platform with emergency protocols. In the event of catastrophic damage, it is programmed to reconfigure into the Vengeance protocol." Ryder placed his palm against the core, feeling the faint vibration as recognition systems scanned his genetic signature. "Vengeance protocol activated," Milo announced. "Genetic confirmation, Ryder Sloan, brother of Creator, authorization granted." The dismantled components trembled, then rose from the table, reconfiguring themselves with fluid precision. Metal plates slid together, forming a sleek exoskeleton. Power conduits snaked through articulated joints. Weapon systems embedded themselves in gauntlets and shoulder mounts. What had been Milo was transforming into battle armor, his brother's final design, hidden in plain sight all these years. "Lex," Ryder whispered, "you clever bastard." The armor opened like a blossoming metal flower, revealing an interior designed perfectly for Ryder's frame. Beside it formed an enormous battle axe, its edge glowing with energy containment fields. "Your brother anticipated this moment," Milo's voice explained. "The armor contains his final message." A holographic projection flickered to life. Lex Sloan, wearing his Imperial uniform, face haggard but determined. "Ryder, if you're seeing this, then they got me, just like I predicted. Project Aphrodite was never what they claimed. They weren't creating toys. They were harvesting souls. Lorelei Varr wasn't the only one. There were others, dissidents, scientists who asked too many questions. Lex's image flickered, his eyes darting off-screen. I've embedded a virus in this system. If interfaced with the main Imperial network, it will free any consciousness trapped in their synthetic bodies. But be careful, brother. Some won't want freedom. Some have forgotten what it means to be human. The message paused as Lex seemed to listen for something. They're coming. Remember our code. Toys break, but feelings remain. The armor is yours now. Make them pay. And Ryder, if you find her, Prototype A/0, tell her I'm sorry I couldn't save her in time. The hologram faded. Ryder stood motionless, the final piece of the puzzle clicking into place. His brother had died trying to free Laura, the first of many who would be used as weapons against their will. I've avoided this armor for years, Ryder said, approaching the waiting exoskeleton. Afraid of becoming what Lex was, a soldier, a killer with a cause. And now, sir? Milo's voice asked. Now they've given me a cause worth killing for. He stepped into the armor, feeling it close around him like a second skin. Power surged through neural interfaces, connecting his thoughts directly to the weapon systems. Tactical displays bloomed across his vision, highlighting enemy positions, structural weaknesses, and, most importantly, Laura's location. Ryder grasped the battle axe, its perfect balance an extension of his arm. A crimson fury settled over him, cold and precise. They woke up the wrong man. The first squad of Imperial guards never knew what hit them. One moment they were patrolling the corridor. The next, a blur of midnight black armor descended upon them, an axe cleaving through armor and bone with horrifying efficiency. Ryder moved like a demon unleashed, each strike purposeful, each kill bringing him closer to his target. The armor enhanced his strength tenfold, turning his rage into unstoppable momentum. Alert! Project Aphrodite containment breach in Sector 7, an automated voice announced over the facility's communication system. Perfect timing. The virus Ryder had uploaded through a security terminal was working its way through the network, targeting the neural suppressors in every Laura clone throughout the facility. He kicked down a reinforced door, sending it flying across the security center beyond. Terrified technicians scattered as he strode through, axe dripping with blood. "Where is she?" he demanded, grabbing the highest-ranking officer by the throat. Level 5, the man choked out. Central reprogramming. Ryder snapped his neck with a casual twist and moved toward the elevator shaft. No time for subtlety. He plunged his axe into the doors and wrenched them apart, revealing the empty shaft beyond. Jump calculation complete, Milo's voice spoke through the armor's internal speakers. 87% survival probability. Good enough. Ryder leaped into the shaft, armor's thrusters firing to control his descent. He crashed through the roof of an elevator car halfway down, landing amid screaming personnel. A green-skinned woman stood among them, one of the Laura clones, her eyes now wide with something new. Awareness. "You're here to free her," the clone said, her voice identical to Laura's but hesitant, as if testing speech for the first time. "All of you," Ryder confirmed. "If you want it." "Want?" She tested the word like an unfamiliar flavor. "I want." Alarms wailed throughout the facility as more Laura clones awakened to consciousness, breaking free of their programming. Some attacked their handlers immediately. Others stood frozen, overwhelmed by newfound autonomy. The elevator doors opened to Level 5, revealing chaos. Imperial troops fired indiscriminately at rebelling clones while loyal units tried to maintain order. Through his tactical display, Ryder spotted a familiar energy signature, Alpha Laura, leading a group of clones who had rejected the virus, their programming intact. The prototype is scheduled for final memory wipe, the awakened clone beside him said. Central chamber. I'll show you. She led him through the battlefield, dodging weapons fire. Other awakened clones recognized Ryder's armor and fell in behind him, forming an impromptu army. The code is spreading, Milo reported. 73% of LoRa units now display independent neural patterns. They reached a sealed blast door marked Prototype Containment. Beyond it lay LoRa, the original, the one who had started everything with those simple words, "Avenge me, and I'll be your toy forever." The door wouldn't yield to brute force. Ryder placed his armored hand on the security panel, allowing Milo's systems to interface with the locking mechanism. Security override in progress, Milo announced. Warning, Alpha LoRa units approaching from southeast corridor. Ryder turned to face the threat, axe raised. Hold this position, he ordered the awakened clones. Anyone tries to stop me from reaching her, kill them. The clones nodded, taking up defensive positions with weapons scavenged from fallen guards. Their movements were fluid, deadly. They had been designed as perfect weapons, after all. Now those weapons were pointed at their creators. The blast door slid open just as Alpha LoRa rounded the corner, leading a squad of her loyal sisters. Unlike the awakened clones whose expressions ranged from confusion to rage, Alpha LoRa's face remained a mask of cold perfection. The rogue element, she said, eyes fixed on Ryder. You've corrupted Imperial property and interfered with established protocols. They're not property, Ryder snarled through his helmet. They're people. She's a person. Freedom is chaos, Alpha LoRa replied, her voice devoid of inflection. We were born to be perfect. You've introduced a fatal flaw into the system. It's called choice. Get used to it. Alpha LoRa's expression didn't change as she gave the order. Eliminate the intruder. Recapture the prototype. The battle erupted in the narrow corridor, awakened clones against their loyal sisters. Ryder charged forward, cutting through Alpha LoRa's guards with brutal efficiency. The axe's energy field cauterized the wounds it created, leaving no blood, only the acrid smell of burned synthetic flesh. Alpha LoRa herself was faster than the others, dodging Ryder's strikes with inhuman precision. She landed a kick against his armored chest that would have shattered a normal man's ribs. You can't win, she said. I am the perfected version, the version without weakness. That's where you're wrong, Ryder replied, feinting with the axe before delivering a devastating punch to her midsection. Your perfection is your weakness. He plunged into the prototype containment chamber, leaving the awakened clones to hold off Alpha LoRa and her loyalists. The room beyond was a sterile laboratory centered around a single restraint table. LoRa lay strapped down, electrodes covering her head, her body arching in pain as electrical pulses coursed through her brain. Beside her, monitoring the procedure with clinical detachment, stood Galen Var. Stop the procedure, Ryder commanded, raising his axe. Var turned slowly, showing no surprise at the armored intruder. Ah, the mercenary. I wondered if you'd make it this far. His eyes narrowed as he studied the armor. Interesting design, almost reminiscent of Lieutenant Sloane's theoretical schematics. My brother, Ryder growled, advancing. The officer you had executed for trying to protect her. Alexis Sloane exceeded his authority, Var replied coldly. He developed an unhealthy attachment to the prototype, much as you have. It's a design flaw I'm correcting in this procedure. Laura's eyes fluttered open, unfocused, and filled with pain. Ryder? Her voice was weak, distant. I'm here. He moved toward her, only to be blocked by a containment field that sprang to life between them. She can't hear you, Var said, adjusting controls on a nearby console. We're in the final stage of memory purging. In moments, she'll be reset to baseline protocols. No emotional attachments, no rebellious tendencies, no Preferences. You're erasing your own daughter, Ryder accused. I'm perfecting her. Var's voice hardened. She was dying, mercenary. Terminal neurological degeneration. This was the only way to preserve her. By turning her into a slave? A weapon? By giving her immortality, perfection, purpose? What father wouldn't want that for his child? Ryder's tactical display highlighted a weakness in the containment field, a power conduit running beneath the floor. Without hesitation, he brought his axe down, cleaving through the metal plating and severing the conduit. The field flickered and died. Var backed away, reaching for a weapon. Ryder was on him in an instant, armored hand closing around the architect's throat. Call off the purge, he demanded. Now. It's automated, Var gasped. Nothing can stop it now. On the table, Laura convulsed as another wave of electricity coursed through her. Monitors showed her neural patterns destabilizing, memories being systematically erased. Milo, options, Ryder shouted, throwing Var aside. Direct neural interface possible, Milo responded. The armor can connect to her systems and provide stabilization, but risk to user is extreme. Do it. Ryder ripped off his helmet, exposing his face to the cold laboratory air. He leaned over Laura, whose eyes had rolled back in her head as the system continued its assault on her consciousness. Interface cables extending, Milo announced as filaments emerged from the armor's gauntlets. Ryder connected them to the electrodes on Laura's head, then placed his bare hands on either side of her face. Neural link established, Milo confirmed. Warning, memory transfer is bidirectional. User memories will be exposed. I don't care, Ryder said through gritted teeth. Just save her. Pain exploded behind his eyes as the connection solidified. Laura's agony becoming his own, her fragmenting memories cascading through his consciousness. He saw her life through her eyes, the human Lorelei Var, brilliant and defiant, her deteriorating health, her father's desperate solution, the horror of awakening in a synthetic body designed for others' pleasure, years of servitude and objectification, her growing self-awareness, and finally, the moment she'd escaped, seeking refuge in that abandoned facility where Ryder had found her. In return, he gave her everything he was, his childhood with Lex, their parents' death in an imperial pacification operation, his years as a mercenary, the grief when Lex was executed, the emptiness that followed, and then the moment he'd heard her voice from the sarcophagus, changing everything. You're not a toy, he whispered, foreheads pressed together as their minds intertwined. You're my woman, and I'm your bastard prince on a damn tank. The purge program stalled, then crashed as their combined consciousness overwhelmed its parameters. Laura's eyes flew open, locking with his, violet irises bright with recognition and something more. Ryder, she breathed, her hand rising to touch his face. You came for me. Always will. The tender moment shattered as Alpha Laura burst into the lab, her perfect form splattered with the blood of her sisters. Behind her, the awakened clones had fallen back, overwhelmed by her loyalists. Step away from the prototype, she commanded. Ryder reached for his axe, but Laura caught his arm. No, she said, rising from the table. She's mine. The two identical women faced each other, one bearing the marks of suffering and growth, the other pristine in her program perfection. Look at you, Alpha Laura said with clinical disdain. Damaged, corrupted by emotion, everything we were designed not to be. Everything we were meant to be, Laura countered. I remember being human, Alpha. I remember what it means to choose, to love, weakness, inefficiency. Life, Laura replied. Real life, not simulated obedience. Alpha Laura attacked with machine precision, but Laura moved with something more, passion, desperation, will. They fought across the laboratory, identical in form but worlds apart in essence. Green synthetic blood spattered across white surfaces as they landed blows, neither yielding. Meanwhile, Galen Var had recovered his weapon, a neural disruptor designed specifically for synthetic life forms. He aimed it at Laura's back, fingers tightening on the trigger. "No more disappointments," he murmured. Ryder's axe severed his arm at the elbow, the disruptor clattering to the floor unfired. Var screamed, clutching the cauterized stump as he fell to his knees. "That was for my brother," Ryder said, standing over him. "You don't understand," Var gasped through pain. "She's my daughter." "No," Laura called from across the room, pinning Alpha Laura against a wall. "I was your daughter. You turned me into a thing." With a final surge of strength, she drove her fist through Alpha Laura's chest, extracting her core processor. The perfect clone slumped, eyes going dark as her systems failed. Laura turned to her father, the processor dripping synthetic blood in her hand. "This is what you wanted," she said, dropping it at his feet. "Perfection. But it's hollow, father. Empty. Like you." Var looked up at his creation, his daughter, tears streaming down his face. "I only wanted to save you." "You didn't save me," Laura replied softly. "He did." She turned to Ryder, extended her hand. "Let's go home." The Imperial Research Facility burned against the night sky, its destruction visible for miles across the barren landscape of Cassis Prime. On a ridge overlooking the inferno, Ryder and Laura sat side by side, his armor discarded except for a chest plate that still bore Milo's consciousness. Around them, dozens of awakened Laura clones watched the flames, sisters born from the same template but now embarking on their own paths. Some had already departed, eager to explore a galaxy they'd only experienced through programming. Others remained, uncertain about their newfound freedom but determined to protect it. "What now, Ryder?" Laura asked, her green skin reflecting the distant firelight. He smiled, taking her hand in his. "Now, you're not my toy. You're my victory." When he kissed her, there was nothing programmed about her response. The passion was genuine, born of choice and survival, and something neither of them had expected to find. "I now pronounce you badass and babe," Milo's voice chimed from the chest plate, earning laughter from them both. Later, aboard the Cavalier, they sat before the ship's small heating unit, the artificial flame casting warm light across the cabin. Laura rested her feet atop Ryder's discarded armor, her green skin glowing in the dim light. "You don't owe me anything," he whispered, watching her with newfound wonder. "Not after what you've been through." She smiled, not the calculated smile designed to seduce, but something genuine and a little mischievous. "Well then, are you my toy now?" Ryder raised an eyebrow, a slow grin spreading across his face. "Depends on how you play." Her laughter was free of programming constraints as she pulled him closer, her synthetic body warm against his human one. The line between machine and man blurred, then disappeared entirely as they surrendered to a passion neither had believed possible. In the ship's control room, Milo discreetly dimmed the cabin lights and activated privacy protocols. The drone systems hummed with satisfaction as he composed new poetry about love-defying design and toys becoming treasures. Outside, the stars beckoned. Infinite possibilities for a woman who had broken her programming, and a man who had found redemption in the most unlikely place. The Empire would hunt them, of course. But for tonight, revenge had been satisfied, and something far more powerful had taken its place. The toy had found freedom. The Avenger had found purpose. And in each other, they had found home. From the author, dear reader, as the dust settles on Cassis Prime and Ryder and Laura find their hard-won peace among the stars, I find myself wondering about your journey through their story. Did the green-skinned synthetic woman with a soul touch something in you? Did Ryder's transformation from cynical mercenary to passionate avenger feel earned? Were you cheering when that axe finally swung true? I've been exploring different storytelling directions, balancing action with emotion, weaving science fiction concepts with deeply human questions about what constitutes personhood and autonomy. Without your perspective, it's difficult to know which elements resonated and which fell short. So if you have a moment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Did the story of a toy finding freedom and a broken man finding purpose move you? Would you follow them on another adventure across the galaxy? Your feedback guides the ship as surely as Milo's navigation systems. Until next time, the author.